What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Ghosts in the Night, a hauntings and paranormal podcast. I believe this is episode 26. It's been a long journey, and I think I'm getting better. I hope you think so. Now, if you've followed me on Twitter at night_ghost, you'll know that I've been really thinking about doing some live streaming on YouTube, and I kind of said I wanted to record a podcast on location and try to live stream it. Now, this past Friday, that was my full intention. Now, a lot of things went downhill, and we couldn't go to the particular location I had picked out for recording the podcast on location and going live. So we tried to go to Plan B, and we went to, just spur of the moment, went to a little greenhouse, and I went with the Cincinnati Ghost Chasers, and we just decided to go ahead and record a podcast. And I tried to go live, but we were having some technical difficulty with the camera. We had full battery, and all of a sudden it was gone. Paranormal? Maybe. I don't know. It was weird. I know we were in the green. All bars were in the green. Then next thing I know, nothing. So there isn't actually a video for this particular podcast, but I did get it recorded, and I think it was a good podcast. We had a great conversation. Basically, it's just four people sitting around BSing about the paranormal. Like I said, we were at a location at a private residence that nobody's ever investigated before, except for Frankie, the founder of the Cincinnati Ghost Chasers. It was his mother's house, basically, and he doesn't allow anybody in there to investigate. And I was honored that he let me and some of the other team members go in and kind of do a brief little investigation of the greenhouse he has in the back. It was interesting. We talked a little bit about what he has experienced there, but mainly we talked about the paranormal. We discussed portals. We also discussed protecting yourself as a paranormal investigator. I really think you're going to like it. Before I play that recording of our time spent in that haunted greenhouse, let's cover a few little business topics. Don't forget, you can follow us at night_ghost on Twitter. That is where I do most of my updates for the podcast. And please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I post a video for each and every podcast. And when I do an investigation, I post some highlight videos there as well, whether we find something or whether we don't find anything. I do try to document it and share it with you guys. So be sure to like, subscribe, and give us a review however you take in this podcast. We're available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. I can't even name them all, but however you take in this podcast, be sure to leave us a review and let me know what you think of this podcast. Now, you can find all the show notes for this podcast or anything else at philsams.com. That is the official home of Ghosts in the Night. You can also leave us a comment there. If you have a story you want to share, be sure to go to the contact us page at philsams.com. I would love to hear your story and maybe relay your experiences to the listeners. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Let's go ahead and get it started. Ghost in the Night with Phil Sams. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Ghosts in the Night, a hauntings and paranormal podcast. This was supposed to be a special episode because we wanted to go live at actual investigation we were on. I'm here with the Cincinnati Ghost Chasers, but we had an issue with the location. We didn't go to where we planned on going, so we went to Plan B, which is an undisclosed haunted house in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, this has not been investigated by any teams whatsoever. Only one person has done some investigation here, and that is Frankie. And he is here with us, and I'm also with Bonnie and Greg from the Ghost Chasers. And we are going to talk about this location, what Frankie has experienced here, and just kind of see what happens. Hopefully it won't be too bad of a train wreck since all our plans got shit canned. So, Frankie, tell us about this place.
Well, since I grew up here, should we say, I've been experiencing knocks, footsteps, bangs, disembodied voices, even screams have been heard.
Now, this place is currently, nobody's living here at the present time, correct?
That's correct.
I think you're going to have to move a little bit closer to the mic, unfortunately. Oh. What the hell is that?
That's her moving that.
Oh, okay. All right. So nobody's living here. It's just a empty canvas, basically, for the spirit world. So what do you think is actually here?
Well, I hope it's my loved ones, but I'm not sure on that at this present time. I think there's a portal here. Since my mom has passed on to greener pastures in the sky, and since I've been working on the house, things have gone haywire.
Right. Now, we are actually not in the house. We are currently in a small greenhouse, which has had a lot of activity in it as well. We will save the actual inside of the home for a later date. So, I know you were telling me about, sounds like scratching on the outside, and you go out there and there's no footprints or anything in the snow or whatever. Mm-hmm. So what do you think it's coming from the land, or do you think it's more a combination of, residual land haunting or something connected with the land, plus maybe your loved ones from the house kind of commingling?
Well, when my mom was alive and my brother was alive, there was still the activity there. So I'm going to have to go with probably land hauntings.
Right. Now, it kind of moves into, before the plan changed to come here, I wanted to talk about portals, because where we were going originally had plans on going. There's a reported portal at that location. I wanted to do the podcast exactly from that location and kind of see what happened. I have a thought on portals myself, but I want to get all three of your input on what you feel or think about portals. And I'll go ahead and go first, just for the mere fact of, I've done a little bit of research, and I think a lot of it is kind of iffy at best. We all know of, people say that portals are, mirrors, doorways, and, TVs or whatever can be a portal. Now, I personally feel that, a portal isn't necessarily an object. It's more of the environment around an area. And it doesn't necessarily mean the mirror is a portal or the doorway is a portal. It just means that particular area is kind of, a thinning in the veil, to kind of use that terminology. It's just a spot that's thin between the dimensions and allows the spirits to cross over. Are you a real believer in the whole mirror and doorway and window philosophy of portals?
I think that's a possibility, but I agree with you also. I think portals can be just about anywhere.
Right.
Because I actually have some pictures, and a friend was actually on the other side of the neighborhood that's actually seen this blackish waving thing with his own eyes.
Right.
So, I can't explain that. So, yeah, I think portals are all around us, just like spirits.
When it comes to the mirror aspect of it, a lot of it has to do with our own psyche, probably. Everybody has things about themselves they don't like. And when you look in a mirror, basically your own demons are looking back at you. So I almost feel like it's more of ours. We have turned the mirror into a portal, when it's not necessarily the mirror. It's more of the energy in the area around the mirror. It's like, back when they created photographs in the, late 1700s, 1700s, early 1800s. You know, they thought the photograph would take your soul. So we've always had an issue about, you know, our own image, on looking at our own image. And I think maybe the mirrors have kind of gotten a bad rap. And it's more along the lines of, you know, what the hell is going on around the mirror, or around the home, or around the woods, or your bamboo that you have out here. That is kind of what is more interesting to me. I almost feel more likely. You know, Greg, Bonnie, you can feel free to chime in here on your thoughts.
Go for it. I'm just listening. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And you know, portals are just one of those things. There has to be a thin spot for the spirits to cross over, good and bad. But when I envision a portal, I envision, you know, the old Poltergeist movie, you know, something coming out of the television. That's not really what I think it is, though. I just think it's a thinning. People talk about the thinning of the veil during Halloween. Mm-hmm. I just think it's more of yes, there's a thinning between dimensions in an area, whether that's the energy that's in that area, and it allows that portal to kind of form that thinning. And that is why you have certain locations that are more haunted or have more activity than, you know, the neighbors next door.
Now, you know, not going off the subject of portals, but windows is a key factor, like at Higginsport.
Okay.
For one, is where they actually attracted these spirits. So you can guarantee if you would do the window game, people would stand outside taking pictures, whether it's digital or regular film cameras.
Right.
And you'd be in the window, 9 times out of 10, there would be a spirit next to you, but only in the window area.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know how I think when I do an investigation. You know, I even though I believe in the paranormal, I believe in the spirit world just for the mere fact that I've had experiences all my life, but I try to approach it as a skeptic, you know,
And you should.
And try to debunk everything first. Just like, if you remember, which Greg and Bonnie missed the last go around, was the lights at Rohs Opera House. Yeah. You know, whoa, I got real dark. You know, my first thought was, okay, that's not a spirit. That's something electrical, something, you know, we talked about maybe a timer or something. You know, we could have very easily jumped right to, oh my God, a ghost just flicked on the lights for us, you know. But I don't want to do that, even though I hope to God it is. But I have to kind of maintain that rational thinking just for the mere fact, because
I'm still going in my head, that's a timer. See, that's what I'm thinking. You know, yeah, I would love it to be something like that, but it has to be recreated again.
Right.
And, I mean, there's got to be a camera on that cord in that room for me, and then it has to go on demand, you know. Right. Yes, it did it on demand.
Right.
Maybe it was a voice-activated timer. I don't know. But, yeah, that's the debunker in me.
Right. You know, my first thought was, you know, naturally, you know, timer, short in the electrical system, you know, a bad wire. But how it was plugged in, it looked like it should have been on the whole time. And what really kind of pushes me towards the paranormal, and I use the word paranormal because I can't truly explain it. I'm not going to say it's a ghost. It's paranormal because I don't know what it was. But what makes it really interesting is, as we sat there, every time we've ever been at that particular location, as we sat there in that same room, there's always noises coming from the hallway, which is supposedly a portal. You know, in that room where it's plugged in, we were hearing knocks that night, before, after, during that light incident. You know, so that to me kind of lends a little bit of credibility, unless it was a bat or a mouse or a huge rat climbing on the, you know, swinging the cord. So that makes it paranormal. Now, am I going to say it's 100%, you know, a ghost screwing around with us? I don't know that. I hope so, but I'm not fully committed on saying that. Just, you know, as of now, it's paranormal because I can't explain it. You can't explain it. It was very, very interesting.
But
But
when we go back the next time, we're going to have to try our best
right,
to recreate the same situation as best as we can. And if it doesn't go on by demand, then my brain will have to go down a different avenue.
right. I mean, it's kind of like, that place. Not to talk too much about Rohs Opera House. That place is one of those places that it has activity. Every time we've been there, we've gotten something, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I go there, I'm looking to find more answers, and the only thing that I get is more questions. Every time I go there, it's like they give you an answer, and then they make you ask 5 more questions.
But that's what the whole paranormal world's about.
And in on my page and everything, I talk about searching for answers. And the more I do this, the more I realize I will never find the answers.
You probably won't.
I will. There's only one way any of us that's sitting in this little greenhouse right now, and that's where we are, by the way, if I didn't say, we are in a little greenhouse, March 1st, with a wood-burning stove going, and I'm wearing a jacket. If the video was working, you'd probably see my breath. But, I want more answers, and we'll never find it, because the only way, like I was saying, any of us will probably ever get those answers is when we pass. That's when it all will be revealed
Probably
to.
correct.
Or close to the edge of passing.
Right.
Because usually when you're getting close to passing away, supposedly people who are ready to pass away actually see spirits.
Right.
And that's kind of I can pretty much vouch for that, because my mother, when she was passing away, she was seeing spirits. And she was asking my sister about who is this and who's that and why are they in the house. And so, Frankie, you got touched. So, yeah, I mean, that is very interesting in that aspect.
It's just one of those things that we are fighting a battle or a war we could never win. And what makes it even worse, I don't care. Frankie has some great evidence from this place that we're currently sitting at right now, which, we'll probably discuss here in a little bit. And he's had great pictures, still photo pictures. No matter what piece of evidence any of us come up with, there's always going to be somebody says, it's this. There's a rational explanation. And that's what makes it so frustrating for me anyway, is, you can have, no matter what we say, what we do, it's still always going to be A versus B.
Well, at least for me at this place, it doesn't matter what other people think at all. It's what I experienced at that given time. I know what's here and what other people in the family have experienced.
Right.
So, everybody can't be delusional, because they're experiencing basically the same thing I'm experiencing. And, this has been going on since I was wee little.
Right.
So it seems to be really heightened now.
Right.
And, I provide, the closest members of the main team, the evidence. And, if I tell you I'm the only one there, except for the cats, and prove it to me that cats actually can talk and say things, then I'll believe that.
I mean, you've played some EVPs for us this evening. We've heard them before or through, the group page, but this was the first time I heard them, actually listening to the recording device myself. I mean, those are some of the best EVPs I've ever heard. And, so crystal clear and right there, almost like they were speaking into the mic itself. I mean, it's better than anything you'll see on any of the paranormal shows.
Well, I didn't do any recordings today when I was in there because, I was man on a mission.
Right.
But I could feel the air is extremely heavy, and I could feel somebody near me. And that feeling generally never goes away. But if it's more dreary outside, it's extremely strong.
Right. Yeah, well, especially when it's dreary, that generally means that, the pressure is changing. The weather system's changing, and the pressure's changing, which could bring more energy into the atmosphere, which would allow the spirits to draw on that energy a little bit more and, manifest and do a little bit more to interact with you.
Well, with some of my studies I've seen where planets and things like that all really have a kind of a tie into a heightened ability and a
like the moon. Like
the moon or Venus or Jupiter or any of those seem to start to have a stronger pull when they're in certain positions.
I agree.
Paranormal activity to actually step up or step down. And a lot of people say that paranormal activity takes place between 12 and 3. They call it the witching hour.
Right.
I have to call that bunk because I have been to a graveyard with Frank during the days, and me and him have both picked up a dead man there who had a heart attack. And I felt it first, and then Frank got it next, and we both laughed about it, but it was a good thing because we both felt it.
Right.
So that kind of helps us in that aspect to understand or confirm that we're not nuts neither.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, if a place is haunted, it's haunted all the time. It's just not haunted at night.
Right.
Trust me, speaking from this place, it feels worse at night. Because, maybe you got that creepiness and what goes on, like here.
Right.
I mean, I can take it in the daytime. I know something's there. I mean, all those voices except one was taken in the daytime.
Right.
And they also work off of your fear.
Right.
Sure.
If they can get you a little bit scared, they feed off of that, and that's what makes them stronger to try to communicate. It's really a weird situation that works that way. Or white noise, they like to eat that all up too. And
well, usually I turn the space heater on, which is on right now, but I usually turn it on for white noise, and I get a lot more stuff than if it's off.
Yes.
Right.
Getting
back to,
portals.
No, the timeline of when activity supposedly, like the witching hour. I agree with you 100% that if it's haunted, it's haunted. But what really, and this is the truth of the paranormal in whole and the frustration of the paranormal, like Rohs Opera House. After 3 o'clock, that place comes alive.
I agree.
Most of our best paranormal encounters or evidence that we've caught has always been after 3 o'clock or from 3 to 6 o'clock. I like the second time I was there, and I believe it was your first time, that place was dead. And, you guys left fairly early that night.
Yes, we did. Most activity I got was down in the basement when you were down there with me on the K2 meter. And I sensed an older man that just did not want me to have that down there.
Right. But after you left and then 3 o'clock,
it took off again.
It took off again because, Frankie took a little nap. And
he left me for dead upstairs.
So, I went.
And there's noises and bangs all around me while I'm sleeping.
So I went to do a little, solo investigation.
How innocent.
And, hey, I was investigating.
Yeah.
And we started to get a little bit, and right there where that the supposed portal is, I mean, we were getting things left and right. And that was the same night. Well, you were still there when we got the ghost box session with, Lucifer decided to make an appearance.
Yeah.
Which was comical.
Yes.
And then we got it again at the dollhouse. I'm starting to think Lucifer likes me on the ghost box for some reason.
I think they use that Lucifer and Satan a lot to try to spark the fear, so they can feed off your fear.
Well, let's get.
But I won't ever play them down neither, because what's really weird is that
you never know.
You never know.
Right. It's like at the dollhouse. We were doing that session, and you were picking up on. We got Satan in the ghost box again. Mm-hmm. You were picking up something in the kitchen.
Oh yes.
And we heard a knock, and I went in there. And you know what? And I didn't feel anything. I didn't even feel any. Whoa! I didn't feel anything at all. I shouldn't say it. I didn't feel anything negative at all. Almost like whatever was interacting with us was trying to give us that impression to scare us off a little bit.
Right.
But when we called its bluff a little bit, or when I called its bluff and went in there, I didn't get the same feelings that I was getting earlier, because that one room I didn't want to be in at all in the beginning. And even when we were sitting in that room doing that session, I kind of was getting that, tingly feeling, goosebumps, and then when I went in there, nothing. No, whether it just didn't want to interact with me.
Yeah.
That could be too.
What it is.
That could be too.
I think it feeds off of certain people at certain points in times.
Like Amber.
Yes.
Like it was.
We all kind of had our own interactions at different points in times, and it was all before 3, which was what was really weird.
Right.
But then once 3 o'clock hit, everything died down.
Exactly.
And then I picked up other stuff that you guys didn't pick up, I don't think.
Yeah. After 3 o'clock, that place just for me anyway, that whole place just lightened up.
Yes, it did.
It had
exactly. It was like guardian. That's what I kind of picked up. Is like guardian angels walked into the house.
Okay.
At that point in time and changed things.
It had that heavy feeling from the time we were there till about 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Just about every room, especially the front room mainly. And I will say, yes, those heaters were throwing out some EMF, but it just had a weird, heavy feeling in every room. Of course, there's only 4 rooms. But at 3 o'clock, it just poof, nothing.
Right.
Even though I told Frankie about this, and I think I talked about it on the podcast. The doll, what was they called, a Hell in the Basket?
Yes.
With the lady who had it before, had car trouble.
Yes.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that story that she was telling?
I think I did hear some of it.
Well, when we left, they were going to follow me out, but I had to go to Speedway. And so I was like last in line. We were letting the cars warm up, and turned the car on. They were warming up, and I thought Frankie was in front, parked, and he knew I was going to go to Speedway, and nobody was leaving. So I put the car in reverse, started backing up. Then Amber hit her brake or something, so I stopped. Said, okay, maybe they're going to pull forward. Nothing. My car shut off and died.
Huh.
And that has never happened. It's a 2012 with like 50,000 miles.
Now, that's the second time I've heard somebody have car problems before after doing a ghost hunt. I know of another lady who lives in eastern Ohio. She had problems with her car after she did a ghost hunt.
Right.
And I have a funny feeling that they can affect electronics very easily.
Right.
Because I had with my phone when I was at work, I had a picture sent to me of a haunted doll.
Right.
And it wasn't such a big problem that I had a picture of that doll sent to me. But the problem came in was when I sent that picture to somebody else, and then all of a sudden I ended up getting a scratch on my hand.
Right.
Like it was mad because I sent that picture to somebody else.
That's weird.
Yes. And I have not sent that picture since then.
Right. It's just the paranormal is so hit and miss, and it's almost like everybody's got an opinion, and because it's all guesswork.
It is.
It's completely 100% total guesswork, and the best you can do is just go out and experience it.
It is.
I know I enjoy using equipment, but really, ideally, what I want, and I've said this 100 times probably, I want the experience. I'd much rather have something happen to me where I can physically feel it, physically see it, or verbally hear it, than catch it on a recorder or...
Catching it on a recorder is always the challenge.
Right. I want the personal experience, because, like I said earlier, nobody's going to believe you anyway. You could have the greatest piece of evidence that is for sure 100% paranormal, and you don't know what it is, but it's not a person, or nobody was there.
Right.
There's somebody's always going to question it and say, well, this was something else. But they can never take your personal experience away. No,
they cannot. They can only have one themselves. Right. That's why I always say to anybody who questions the paranormal, go to one.
Right.
Go to one. You may walk into a building, and I've walked into buildings, and Frank has too, we all probably have, and the experience might be really low, dull, nothing. You may not get nothing. But then you can walk into a building that would just rock your socks.
Right.
And you would not have expected it. I mean,
Like Higginsport.
when we went to the dollhouse, Bonnie got her first disembodied voice, and Amber heard it too.
Yeah.
So that was a good confirmation.
Right.
And that's a good thing to get those disembodied voices. Me and Frank got them at Post Town. We got that little girl there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were at the dollhouse, me and Amber picked up like a gobbled baby, which was really weird. I would have never expected that. So experience happens to every person in their own certain way. The problem is having the equipment on or with you at that point in time to catch it.
Right.
And even I've even seen where you could have a voice recorder on and you could hear something and you go back and check the tape and there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
It is what they want you to experience. That's the way it works.
Right.
Yeah, your best form. I was going to say something. I forgot. Forget it.
Damn it, Frankie. You just ruined the show.
Dead air time.
Oh, the best form of equipment is yourself.
Yes.
Exactly.
It you know, like when I walk into a building, say Higginsport, I'll tell you up front if it's good, it's going to be good, or it's not. And when I turned around and I told the people, I said, this is going to be really good.
Right.
And it was really good. And sometimes I don't feel it right away. But, you know, sometimes I bounce off of walls.
Right.
Sometimes Greg will have to tackle me. That'll probably hurt, but anyway.
Well, that's a very interesting aspect, too, you brought up, Frank, is that when you and me have both been at a place, and I won't mention the place, but
Right.
I picked up something, and you picked it up, but then you said you picked up something else, and I straight out told you I didn't pick it up. And that's just the way it works.
It is.
And it's hard to explain, but it's just the way it works.
You know, what's really even just as frustrating is at certain locations, you may have a great experience. You might feel everything and then nothing.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and a perfect example is that you guys didn't go on that. No, you guys didn't go on that. It was Wickland. Me and Frankie were at Wickland with Robert and all that.
Right.
You know, that place, I think Frankie and I can agree, that place was dead.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty dead.
But on a side note, I had my first touch at that location.
Really?
And it was on, remember up in the one bedroom?
Yeah.
You know, I got touched. And at the time, I had a video camera facing me. I was videotaping myself. And you can actually see me kind of go for it. And there was no bug. You saw no bug in the recording.
Right.
And Frankie can swear to this. I got physically ill, 3-4 minutes after that.
Yeah.
And I had to leave. And leave the room and go kind of relax.
Right.
Calm down a little bit. Now, did I get sick because my mind said, "Oh shit, I just got touched," or was it
something really affect you,
or did something affect me? I don't know. But the rest of the night, and that was the only thing we got. There was no EVPs there. I got no EVPs. I don't think Frankie got anything.
I got none either.
We dicked around with the REM pod and and basically got frustrated with that and wanted to throw up against the wall. But that was it. That was the only thing that happened. And somebody else got scratched from the other team. They got actually scratched because me and Frankie were up doing a thing, a ghost box session in the 3rd floor. And they came up and they were down in the basement. And he came up and showed us the scratch and the pictures of the scratches. But those are the only, nothing. That place was dead. I mean, it was not even creepy dead. I mean, it was just like being in a room at your home with the lights on watching television. That's the comfort level that I had there.
Right.
But yet I got touched there. That's the only time in one of our investigations that I've ever had what I thought was a touch.
Right.
What was that?
That was your furnace.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I can say too is that for people out there who are listening to this, is when you decide to do something like this, I highly, highly suggest that you make sure you have preparations to cleanse yourself afterwards, because even if you go to some place that you don't think something's with you, it may not rear its ugly head until you get home, and then it shows itself up, and then it's too late.
Let me talk to you about this. Let me talk to you, Greg, about this, because I want your opinion on it.
Yeah, go for it.
And I'm thinking I have kind of had a conversation about this a little bit in the past. Maybe it's just me being an idiot. I don't know. Not that I don't respect the fact that you need to protect yourself, but I also believe personally that it all depends on your mindset when it comes to being attacked or having attachments or whatever. If a spirit feels, I don't want to use the word weak, but you are more open, I guess would be a better phrase, by your how you mentally think about the paranormal, how you mentally carry yourself, they will attach you. To where if you're a little bit more, how can I say this, a little bit stronger mentally, not necessarily fearless, but you have that general persona and you think you're not going to affect me, I don't care what you are. I think that has a lot to do with it. Somebody's mental, how they view the world, how they process things, and how they handle themselves will lend them to the attachment.
It does have a lot to do with it, because I've always told people that if you can't sense anything and you choose not to sense anything, then you can go through life not sensing it.
Right.
As soon as you decide to maybe start sensing it a little bit, it can keep increasing if you so choose. I have talked to a lady who was out in Eastern Ohio. She contacted me and she wanted me to do a reading on her daughter. And so I did a reading on her daughter, and her daughter had committed suicide by heroin. And I told her this, and she agreed that I was right. And she wanted to know if her daughter was still there. And I told her that her daughter was still there, and she will make appearances periodically, and if you choose to acknowledge them, she'll stay there. But if you choose to ignore them, they will leave. They go elsewhere.
Right.
But I also told her, too, that her daughter was going to, if she didn't make appearances to her constantly, like she was hoping it would happen, that girl was visiting other members of the family to see if, because you get a new task when you pass away, if you so choose. She kind of chose to protect the rest of the family, not to do the same mistake that she had done.
Right. I liken it to this. Spirits, I think the word demon gets thrown out way too freaking much.
Yes.
I think, so I'm coming from the mindset that a spirit was a living person at one time. They had a human form.
Yes.
They passed away. And I believe our person, when I pass away and I go into the afterlife, I'm still going to be a smartass.
You could be.
And possibly a little bit of a dick. So I don't think you lose that stuff when you die.
Right.
So when these spirits are kind of probably screwing with us a little bit, especially more, what we consider, when you hear somebody talk about a demon or dark spirit, yes, it might be, but probably not. It's more like it's a pissed off person, whether they're pissed off they died suddenly or they were just an asshole in real life.
Yes.
That's majority what it is. And when it comes to, attachments and everything, like I said earlier, I believe it's your mental state, how you view it. If you're more scared of attachments,
yes,
you're going to attract it a little bit more.
Yes.
Because I've always said, if a spirit, I don't worry about it too much, because if a spirit wants to attach itself to me and get inside my head, good freaking luck. You don't want to be in my head. I mean, that's like an identity thief stealing somebody with bad credit. You just screwed yourself. But not that I'm mentally stronger than anybody else. I don't worry about it, just for the mere fact you're not going to hurt me. But But, I'm not trying to say that I shouldn't do or somebody shouldn't do any kind of extra protection. I just think it's how their mind, how they perceive it.
It's how you open yourself up
Right.
to it.
If you make yourself a target, it's like almost like bullying. If you make yourself a target, the aggressive people will find you.
Yes.
And I think it's the same thing in the afterlife, essentially, and their interactions with us.
Well, it's an easier communication.
Right.
That's why when I go to certain places and I have been jumped by spirits,
Right.
and that happened to me at Post Town, and you were standing there.
Mm-hmm.
I got jumped by the little girl, and I envisioned everything she went through. And what was really interesting was when I envisioned her going over the stairs and hitting the next rail, you had a strike in your ribs
Right.
that made you hurt.
Right.
And that confirmed to me what was happening was really happening.
Right. I mean, that was one. If that was a coincidence, it was one hell of a coincidence.
It was one heck of a coincidence.
And we were standing. For anybody listening who's not aware of this, Post Town's an elementary school, and there are reports of a girl falling downstairs, or like it's a spiral staircase essentially, and she fell down the middle. Now, reports vary. Some say she died. Some say she died at home. That's neither here nor there. But we were at the top of that staircase when that situation happened. Right there where she supposedly fell. Or were we down at the bottom? I don't remember.
No, we were at the top.
Yeah, we were at the top.
Because
that's right.
when I came to the very top of the stairs, I saw her running down the hallway, come out of the doorway, and she came right at me. And then next thing I know, she was in me, showing me everything that happened.
Right.
And you felt it, and then I felt the whole traumatic ending.
Yeah, that's another, Post Town's another one that, that was hit and miss.
It is.
95% we were there twice. 95% of the time, I didn't get anything.
Right.
But that was one of the more, I did catch what I thought maybe was a shadow person on video. But that experience was, and I'm not one to get pains in the rib like that. Now, if you want to talk back or neck, I got pains all day. But, that is something that's never happened to me ever in my life. That I recall. But for that to happen right at that exact time, that was one hell of a coincidence, or, we both were tapping into something there.
Yes.
Frankie, you're being awful damn quiet.
I'm listening.
Well, we know you don't like Post Town that much, so.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I know it has something there.
Yes.
It just doesn't have the activity that he claims it has there.
Right. And I've heard people rave about that place. And
Yeah.
don't get me started on Thornhaven, because we will be here for 2 hours me bitching about Thornhaven.
Thornhaven is a slow can of worms. I'm
Thornhaven,
learning.
I will just dig into it right now. It's usually, except for that lady in a dress, Thornhaven for me is most active between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, well, see, I left. I got pissed off and left before that.
Yeah, that's when we had 100% interaction with the spirits upstairs.
During the daylight hours, essentially.
Yeah, during the daylight.
Yeah, because we were there.
He doesn't do daylight hours. So
I was there from what time? Whatever, 9 o'clock till I think we left at 3, or might not have made it till 2 or 3. And that place was just. I mean, the only activity that I even remotely experienced was with Greg down in the basement. We heard what we thought sounded like a pipe bang, and it was interesting, but I don't know. There's no running water there, so.
See, and I picked up a whole lot more, but me being the way I am, I'm the only one that's getting it. So then it's hard for me to say, oh, I saw this or I do that, and nobody else is getting it. So then it's just a personal experience that nobody else got to share with me, so it becomes interesting.
Right.
Unless I have somebody else who, when I say something, and they actually experienced it as well, then that validates me.
Right.
Which helps.
But Thornhaven I have some great video footage there, but I will not show it or I've thought about uploading it to YouTube just for the mere fact it's me being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I was so looking forward to that. Was the one place that I thought for sure, you know, I've said it in the podcast before, I want somebody to come up, a spirit to come up and grab me and say, hey, I'm here, you know, and shake me. You know, that was the place I thought was happening. Maybe because it was built up from the Ghost Adventures, you know, and all the activity they caught there.
Right.
I thought that place was going to be the place to really knock me out of my socks.
Right.
And so as the night wore on and I got nothing, I was basically, I don't do a lot of taunting at all. Not that I disapprove of it or whatever. But by the end of that night, I was taunting the ghost. I was taunting Zach Baggins and the Ghost Adventures crew. I was calling out everybody.
Right.
Because I was so pissed off.
Because you wanted it so badly.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen.
And nothing. And you would think, a lot of skeptics say when you want it so bad, that's where you see it. So you would think that I wanted it so bad and was expecting it so bad. My mind would have tricked me into thinking I was seeing something.
Right, and that's what you really got to be careful about too, is that your mind playing tricks with you.
But with me, it was a complete opposite. It was like I was up in one of the rooms by myself for like 45 minutes.
Right.
Taunting and nothing.
Right.
I was like, well, shit. All right.
That to me is a hit or miss place. We've had really good action down in the basement.
Yep.
And then sometimes up in the upper floors. And then other times, basically nothing.
I've picked up stuff on the outside of the place, though, too.
Yeah, on the outside.
I've seen shadows out in the bushes, and the barn has something down there as well that I picked up. Right. And it wasn't until I talked to the tour guide that they were actually able to confirm what I was feeling was true situation.
Right. You know, but it's one of those places, you know, you all felt something. I didn't.
Right.
I didn't.
No,
right.
You know, I can... Bobby Mackey's, that's not a great subject for me. I've been there twice. It's expensive to go. You basically end up paying $70 for 4 hours. So my first experience was the better experiences, but I would have to say during my first experience there, maybe 5%.
So
maybe I can't explain my second experience there.
So what you're telling me, that's not a portal to hell? Like,
I don't know what it is.
Like Ghost Adventure said, there's
I
the
don't know
portal.
what it is.
Oh, damn. No, I've been to Bobby Mackey's as a patron. You know, I've drank beer in that place, rode the bull back in my younger days. I didn't feel shit.
You know what? If you guys want to go, you're most welcome to go. But I'm telling you, you're wasting your money.
I have not been there yet, and I feel before I go there, because of everything that's happened to me in my past, I really want to make sure I'm well prepared to walk in there just in case.
I went downstairs and spent a whole hour by myself in the entire building.
And nothing.
Nothing. You know, other professional groups were there.
Yeah.
They got nothing.
Huh.
They even crawled into the hole. Got nothing.
Huh.
They taunted the hole. Got nothing.
Interesting.
You know, that's just that's one of those places, you know.
Right.
And then maybe the next person comes in, a bucket flies through the air.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
But I won't go there again.
Right.
I just don't feel like spending. It's mandatory that you have to take the tour. That's a half an hour more off your schedule.
So now you're down to 3.5 hours.
That's
of
right.
investigation.
And then you got set up. That's another half an hour gone.
Not longer. Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Right.
That's my opinion. You're welcome to go and experience whatever yourself. Maybe you'll get lucky. I don't know.
Right.
But 2 times is enough for me to say no.
Right.
Well, you know, what can you do?
A Revenant House up in Charlottetown, Indiana. I wouldn't go for free.
Huh. So
The house is little. His security system is huge. And you're not allowed to go in certain rooms. Basically, you're allowed to go in almost every room downstairs, which is 3, but they're all connected, so might as well just say 1. And then upstairs, you're allowed in a half a room. Everything else is blocked off.
Well, I hate to say it, we've actually went way too long. You guys are killing me. You know, I'm actually looking forward to actually doing a ghost box session at this tonight after this podcast is up, and I will be sure to let everybody know what I find, or what we find, I should say, or what we hear, because I talked to Frankie about this earlier in the week. You know, I want to try something. You know, a new way to do the ghost box, which I think will be interesting. And so be on the lookout for that. Thanks for checking it out. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. Take care. That was my time spent at this house, in the greenhouse, in the backyard. It was cold. It was the podcast. The recording of the podcast was a little rough. I know the audio is not quite up to snuff, just from the mere fact it was cold. We had to run, we had a generator. There was no electricity at all. Now, I will tell you that after the podcast ended, we did do a standard, ghost box session. We, did some EVP sessions. It was interesting. Ghost box session, like I mentioned in the podcast, I want to try the Estes method, which is basically have one person listen to the ghost box while the rest of the people ask questions. It went okay because, and we didn't get a lot of great responses. I mean, there was a couple times where, the person who had the headphones on listening to the ghost box said something that was relevant to what we were discussing. But later on, we started to, we had some nice K2 hits in a place where should have been no electricity whatsoever. By that time, the generator or the power box that I was using to power up for the podcast recording was off. The only electricity in that place was cell phones. And, we tested it, but seemed like we were getting some communication through the K2 meter, and we're getting some spikes when there shouldn't be any spikes whatsoever. I don't know about that. There should have been no electricity there. Now we're just, spikes coming up from the ground. I don't know. It was interesting, and it seemed to be interacting with us through the K2. But one thing I did notice now was that when you were alone and did like a solo session there, because at one point we broke apart, like they took Frankie and Greg went into the actual house and kind of did walked around, did a little session there, and I stayed by myself in that greenhouse. Now, as soon as they left, some things started to happen. It almost sounded to me like the door was trying to open. Somebody was trying to push the door open, because it's a greenhouse. It's a makeshift greenhouse. And it sounded like somebody's trying to push the door open. The first thing I kind of thought was the wind was trying to blow it open. But I did want to run out and see exactly who was up there. I was hoping somebody'd be walking in, or it would open up completely. If it would have knocked over one of the folding chairs we had sitting there. But I decided not to go out and see what it was. I just continued to ask questions and kind of see if I could get some responses on a digital recorder. Then once Frankie and Greg came back, I asked them, what's the wind like out there? Because I was out there earlier and there was no wind. It was cold, but no wind. So I wanted to see what they said. When they were walking to the house, no wind. And when they were walking back, no wind. Now, did a wind gust push that door open a little bit? Possibly, but it was interesting. And I did hear some other kind of rustling noises in the greenhouse and right outside the greenhouse when I was by myself. But when we were in there all together, wasn't much going on. It seemed much more calm. But it was interesting. We're definitely going to go back, and I'm definitely going to do an full investigation there, and see what we can catch. And hopefully, if I have to go by myself or do a lot of solo work there, I will do that to see if we can catch something. That's going to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another podcast. And don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Our subscription numbers are going up. We're not where I want to be by any stretch of any imagination, but we are getting new subscribers daily. Be sure to subscribe. However you take in the podcast, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn, however you take it in, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, And don't forget, I want to hear from you guys. If you listen to this podcast and enjoy the podcast, or if you don't enjoy it and you've listened to the podcast, be sure to reach out to me, whether it be the comment section or go to the contact us page at philsams.com, or give me a direct message on Twitter, or just leave a comment on YouTube. However you want to interact with me, I want to hear from you, get your feedback on the podcast. So until next week, take care, everybody.